Hello there. Welcome to episode 14 of Bow and Blade, a podcast brought to you by medievalists.net, your home for all things medieval on the internet. Bow and Blade gives you a seat at the bar as scholars of medieval warfare go beyond the Wikipedia articles to talk about the debates and the questions that we're working on today. I'm Michael Livingston, professor at the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina.
And I'm Kelly DeVries, a professor at Loyola University in Maryland. So, what you drinking tonight?
Turkish coffee. Seemed
Turkish
appropriate.
coffee.
Seemed
Yeah, it
appropriate.
does. You're going to remain sober through this battle, huh? I think it's while the Venetians get beat here, they still got the better wine. So I'm going to take something, maybe a Pinot Grigio out of the Venetian land, the mainland.
I see. So I got to keep us on target is
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah. Stay on target.
Okay.
Stay on target.
All right.
Oh, that's
Stay
the
on
wrong
target. Stay
type
on
of naval warfare. Yeah.
So as Kelly alluded to, we are going to talk about a naval battle today, the Battle of Zonchio. This is our 14th episode, as I said, which means we are one away from our next Q&A. So you got to get those questions in, people, so we can answer them. And just like keep rolling them in. If we don't answer them this time, we'll answer them the next time after that. So every 5 episodes, we try and get to your questions. So hit us up with that stuff. But yeah, today we're talking a naval battle. Is this our first naval battle?
Yeah, I think it is. There's lots to choose from, and we were talking about this a couple weeks ago when we were setting up the thing, and we mentioned a couple of other Slavs. We mentioned, of course, Nissa. Both of those we've talked around. We've talked about participants here. This is kind of one of my favorite battles to study. There's so many things that happen, as I'll find out. But it's also, I was thinking just the other day, I thought, we were going to cover some obscure battles. Has there been a more obscure battle than Zonchio that we have had to talk about yet?
No, this has got. Well, I mean, I suppose for some people, Brunenberg, but I'm sure that's more well known than Zonchio. Zonchio is so kind of little known, I guess. That Kelly and I, before we started airing, we're like, wait, why do people call this the first battle of Lepanto? Yeah. It's nowhere near Lepanto.
Yeah.
And honestly, we don't know.
Somewhere in southern Greece. In fact, the reason it's called Zonchio is it's off the coast of Zonchio. The other two names that it gets throughout history. So those of you who may have studied, these are very late 15th century. We're talking about August of 1499 is when this battle is fought, but between the Ottomans and the Venetians. So we're going to be picking we've talked about the Ottomans a lot, but we haven't talked about Venetians much. So this will be kind of a fun way to get involved in them, in those two powers at the end of the Middle Ages. But they fought everything off the coast of Greece, so nothing ever.
Draw a line between them. That's where you hit each other.
Although it wasn't. Well, it is in because it's got to be in the 1520s. That passage that we translated in our reader about the Venetian, but the Ottoman diplomat goes over to Venice, and they take him up in the St. Michael's, the belfry outside of the
Yeah, shoot. What is the date on that thing? I'm gonna have to look that up while we're chatting.
It's after. So it's got to be after 1522. But the Venetians invite them in because they've still got the things we're going to talk about today still are weighing in the beginning of the 16th century, and they go up in the tower of St. Mark's, the belfry that's still there. They go up in the belfry, and the Phoenicians are really bragging to the Ottomans. Oh well, this Ottoman diplomat, oh geez, well we could. You could never attack us. And he stands up there looking out over all of the archipelago and says, well, we do it here, 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 here. Just and you get a feeling
it's marvelous.
They just end that conversation and then goes down very quietly and goes off and has his dinner.
It's 1517 that they have that conversation.
So before the Second of Rhodes, but This all gets
Yeah, and
started.
it's and it
It is.
and the fact that it's in that
It is the
diary,
Diary of
like,
Marina
that's just
Sanudo, which is one of the best.
amazing. On the 7th of November, 1517 is when he wrote that
He
down.
wrote that down, yeah, and it is.
So
Those of you who
crazy.
have a copy of, if you have not read this, the students loved it. My students loved it this past time because they said it's just such an egotistical drop for the for the the autumn the Venetians to be so proud of all their defenses and being on an island, and this Ottoman diplomat saying, "Oh, this is how we do it." Coming up with
Ali
the Ali
Bey,
Bay.
Ali Bey.
Well, here's about the
Yeah.
18 different ways we'll attack your city. So
Yeah, nice
yeah,
city. This is how I
yeah,
do
that's
it.
how we do it.
We actually should all right, so let's actually kind of dial back and point something you said earlier. We haven't talked about Venice, which is one of these big
Yes.
powers. So let's actually just make sure everybody understands, like, why is Venice a big power?
Yeah, and it is. I mean, of course, it's far before the Ottomans become important. I think Venice is maybe the first sea power that really comes out in the early Middle Ages. After the fall of Rome, Romans have got a fairly good naval force. They've learned how to fight on ship, but the only other ships that are in the Mediterranean are off of North Africa, the Vandals, for a long time. It's odd to see that big water source that is the Mediterranean Sea water source, that big lake. I was thinking of
Big big
the
body
big
of
body of
water.
water.
Yeah,
The Romans calling them Nostrum Mare, our lake.
our lake.
The and not recognize that people just obviously used it for trade, but Navy was not much. I mean, if you want to know the truth, and we'll come back to this because it's very important, it's pirates. Pirates control the Mediterranean. So when anybody goes out to trade, and trade goes all the way through, we've got tons of Byzantine vessels and Arab vessels and other things that are found from this early Middle Ages. They will the trading vessels will always be surrounded by galleys that will support them and be their military cover. And so essentially, you've got pirates controlling the seas, and the traders have to try to elude them. No national power is getting big until around 10th, 11th century. Certainly by the First Crusade, Venice is just rises, and it rises because it has to be a naval power. Everybody got to go to Venice. But once you go to Venice, you'll understand why it has to be a naval power. There are no cars.
They got to know
You
how to
have to know
float.
how to float. The taxis in Venice now today are on water. There is no car. It
Such a cool place.
is a
Such a
beautiful
cool
place.
place. And it's not only is it, do they kind of need because they're on water there, but as the Crusades and things are kind of beginning to network, this is a sort of area where things are coming
Yeah,
together, sort of
yeah.
crossroads of trade and transport. And so it becomes that sort of snowball starts rolling pretty quickly. Add in the Italian banking systems, Italian as if like there's no such thing as Italy at that point. What like, but you start getting the economic engines moving in Florence um, and Venice. This becomes like its
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
is this amazing strong navy, and it starts to spread its influence down into the
Yes,
Mediterranean.
it's the only one in the so it coming out of the on the eastern side of Italy. On the west, you have Pisa and you have Genoa and you have Florence. They're always vying against each other. Even Florence doesn't have a port, but they will on the Mediterranean. But they will capture some land and have there. So those even Milan has a presence over in the Western Mediterranean, but nobody really vies against Venice, and that's pretty much because it's established as a naval power from the very beginning, and as a trading power. It's economic and so its military protects its economic, and its economic is prosperous because of the military, and then pays it back. So they've always had that kind of linking, and even though technically under the the Holy Roman Empire, the imperial forces rarely come down below the Alps to take on to any of the cities that begin to rise. So from the 10th century on, there is this rising of Venice, and really the domination of that sea and out into the east. One of the very curious things that was pointed out by Jeremy Black to me one time is he says, all those Venetian maps in the early modern period, they don't face south; they face north. So the boot coming out faces north, so it's north to south, and vice versa. And so, because the Venetians never saw themselves as as sailing down or rowing down out, they rowed up and out. So the maps were
Yeah.
topsy turvy.
Yeah. And that process of coming down the Adriatic Sea, to reach the Mediterranean. It's Adriatic to Ionian and then the Greater Mediterranean. As Venice's influence is moving down, they're actually gobbling up territory as well, especially along what's now the Croatian coast and Albanian coast. So we're getting sort of Venetian colonies, Venetian controlled areas, and if that's sort of as that goes down that coast, right? We get to Greece, and then if you were to keep following it around, you're going to run into a little known place, very rarely mentioned in history, which was then called Constantinople. Small place. Nothing ever really happens there except for all the times it does, including
Yeah.
in 1453, when something happened. What happens in 1453, man?
I don't know. A short Ottoman with a big turban on his head shows up, and a whole bunch of guns and armies and
Big
big guns,
guns, big
big
guns,
guns.
big
And
guns.
yeah, he breaks it. It is kind of curious to go back to that before, because the only other until 1453, the only other people that had really taken Constantinople by land and held it were the Venetians. Now we call it the Fourth Crusade, but if you've ever read the history of the Fourth Crusade, there's a couple of I teach the Crusades. I've got to teach this upcoming term, and we start out after First Crusade, and one of the first things they read is this monopoly document that Venice gives to the Crusaders, saying, "We'll provide everything for you, and you have to provide us such and such, including this monopoly trade." And I always have a student who's a business major, so let me read that. I'll say, "What do you think?" "Are you kidding me? Why would they have ever signed this with the Venetians?" They were smart business people, and that was one of the things the Doges had to be. So in the Fourth Crusade, when the Doges, the Genoese are trying to get trade privileges in Constantinople, and the Doges in Venice are losing little. They actually sponsor the crusade and then tell the Crusaders, "Oh, by the way, not enough of you showed up, and you owe us. You owe us big time for
Yeah.
everything, for the fleets and stuff." It is funny because you run into a Venetian historian that go, "Well, of course Venice had done so much. They built so many ships. They filled them. You know how much that hurt Venice's economy?" And I'm thinking, yeah, yeah. You really have to think like a Venetian. None of that hurt their economy.
I
They were just looking and saying, "We don't have any big burly guys that go out and fight for God. Let's all bring them down and make them fight for us."
you guys want to go take this
Yeah. "Oh,
stuff? Yeah,
geez,
we'll profit off of
but
it.
you owe us some money. Let's stop off in Constantinople. We don't have
Yeah,
trading rights in Constantinople. Oh, you better get them for us. Fourth
better get them
Crusade."
for us. Wreck the place. It's the
The
vagaries of
vagaries of
history. Uh, but yeah, in 1453, big date in history. Constantinople.
Yeah.
That's it. Falls down because the new power now in the neighborhood becomes the
Mhm.
Ottomans,
Yeah. Well, the Ottomans,
and now we have the frontier moves. Right, the frontier moves
yes.
now, between this power now and the next one up essentially is the Venetians. At least along that
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
coast up that way. Down the other direction, we've got other stuff happening in roads and
Yeah.
such. But yeah, this is now where things line up.
It is, and very interesting to read this part of history too, because we're going to get into the naval history. That's always very specific, because the Ottomans don't have a navy. They don't think much of a navy. They're a landed force before the end of the 15th century. But they had bypassed Constantinople. They besieged it 3 or 4 times, not been able to take it. So they'd already occupied almost all of the Balkans. The Albanians are still hanging on and are revolting periodically when they do get taken over. But beyond that, the only thing that is existing is there's a few Phoenician colonies on the Peloponnese, and then Venice has Crete. Now, the 1489, they will also get Cyprus. So Cyprus is given to them because the Katerina, the queen of Cyprus, is Venetian, and she will Katerina Korer will give Cyprus to Venice because she doesn't think she can hold it. So Venice and Crete, the two biggest of the islands in the Eastern Mediterranean, are both held by Venice, and then Rhodes is held by the Hospitallers, as you said. So they there are these kind of now the land is all taken. There's these three islands out there, and it's very clear because Rhodes has already been hit in 1480. It's very clear that the Ottomans would kind of like the Westerners to be off those islands.
Yeah, yeah, no question, no question, and especially when you know if you were to look at a map, Crete, especially kind of, it's almost like a fence, right? The kind of way it runs there. And if you think about, stationing ships, you can actually go out and hit anybody trying to get past, whether it's for trade or whatever. This is obviously one of the major reasons that Rhodes is so, which kind of extends that line, if you will. Rhodes does over towards modern Turkey, and from that naval point, they could raid anybody trying to come through the straits there. And so, yeah, you want to get rid of them, dislodge them, so you can have control over all your
Yeah.
stuff. If you're an Ottoman, that's what you want. And of course, obviously, they don't want that on the other
No.
side. So we're going to get some
Yeah,
conflict.
yeah, there's going to be some conflict, but the Venetians always have, like I said, the this economics and military go hand in hand. So for the Hospitallers,
Mm,
their economics in this region is they get money from their Western territories, from the Western houses. They get donations all the time. They're sent to, and they rob Turkish ships. That's the other thing. Piracy is not on one side here. The Hospitallers are very
yeah,
good pirates. In fact, they call themselves Piratus when they're using Latin, and Corse when they're using French. So they even come up with the Latin word and then the French word corsair that is going to be big. The Venetians really don't do that. So they anticipate that if they hold Crete, they hold Cyprus, then they have control of trade with Greece and Turkish mainland. And then with Cyprus, they have control all the way down to Egypt. And their
right,
constant thought is, we don't have to fight these guys. We can trade with them as long as we secure some bases to trade with them. And we can always make really good agreements, and we'll make lots of profit from this. And then we've got the Silk Road open to us. We've got the down to Egypt. Egypt is still providing grain and other things, and Venice on islands doesn't have a lot of farms. They've got some on the mainland, but there's not a lot, so they have to import all their food. So that's kind of this interesting idea that Venice has at the throughout all the Middle Ages is we're going to fight very few battles. We're going to keep a dominance and then make peace with everybody, and we'll give him to him all these all these treaties, and that's how we will endeavor to stay wealthy and to stay in control. So Venice, until before this time, really doesn't have an army, and the navy is mostly for protecting their fleets and protecting the islands.
so what goes wrong here? Like, why is it that 1453, Constantinople falls, and like, all right, okay, so what goes wrong that we end up having the Ottoman Venetian War starting in 1499?
And that, I think, that's one of the fun things. And I mean, I'd like to see more documents that are coming out of the Turkish side. Get to what would you like on this? But
Oh,
Turkish
please,
documents
please,
are
please.
not, and they're mostly administrative, and so we're not really understanding much. We do know that from historical terms that even in the 1450s, even in the 1480s, the Turks have not really had a concept of navy. I know
Right.
we're going to get all sorts of hated, hate letters and that. The Turks always thought of the Navy. No, they really didn't. So, in fact, one of the
They had
they had
ships. They
ships.
had
Yeah, they had
ships.
ships, and they could
Yeah.
pirate, and they could use them, but they didn't really have a concept of war on the sea. They'd have war on land. That was principally what they would do. So Rhodes gets attacked in 1480, for example. They have a huge fleet, and all it does is ferry men over to the island to attack the city of Rhodes. They have a huge riverine fleet. So when they go up in 1480, in 1486, and not 86, sorry, 1460. Oh, I'm forgetting the attack of Belgrade. I've lost the date. You'll find it for me. Don't age. Don't age. Forget this. Can't believe I forgot the 1456.
1456,
Yes. So
Siege of
Siege of
Belgrade.
Belgrade. So that's a maritime
Right.
a fleet, but it's a riverine fleet. So they have these, and it's only to really protect the armies, to deliver troops, deliver supplies. They don't have a concept of navy per se. So the Venetians and them have really not been at odds. They've the Venetians always worried that they're going to go after Crete. They don't, as I said, they don't get Cyprus until very late. But then there's a worry there. A worry also about the Mamluks. So the Venetians make peace with the Mamluks because they do have fleets, and so they can make peace with the Mamluks because the Mamluks hate the Ottomans as much as they do. So there's some really interesting maneuvering going on here, and I think that one of the things comes out of Rhodes in the concept of especially after Mehmed dies, 1481. So dies the year after he fails at Rhodes. His armies fail at Rhodes. His son Bayezid the second. I think one of Bayezid's points there is as he's getting everything together is that he really isn't ready to go on to much more land conquest. He wants to build a navy up. It takes him a little bit of time. He does build ships up. He builds warships, but he can't because it's a new navy. Who do you have to lead it?
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have experienced people.
No.
The people you know are either the pirates out there or it's the Venetians or this kind of stuff. So yeah, who do you go to when you're choosing somebody to help
Yeah,
you out?
pirates.
Pirates. That's what you
That's
go
what you
for.
go.
You go for the
Yeah,
pirates.
and
You say, hey, you guys got this stuff down because you keep stealing our
that's right.
stuff.
And
Tell me how you
you
do
know,
that.
there's, dude, we're talking about Navy, so I'm trying two seagulls killed with one stone on this, because I know two
Okay.
seagulls
All
killed
right.
with one stone because
Two seagulls, one stone.
the Ottomans hire the pirates to run their armies, their navies. To lead their navies. Well, the first one anyway is Kemal Rice, and he's in the beginning of 1499. The Ottomans actually go to him and say, "Look, dude, we'll pay you more than you could get from our ships. We'll pay you to go after Venetian ships and hospitaller ships, but at the same time, if we decide to have like a naval war, would you also lead it?" And for a pirate to, I mean, Kemal Rice, we don't know his background very, very much, but we do know that he's probably from one of these little islands off the side.
He was born in
Yeah,
Gallipoli. We know
okay, so
that.
he was. So he was,
Yeah.
he is Turkish, probably has some Byzantine background in him, and he may be Muslim. How good a Muslim, I don't know. But all of a sudden he gets this, and it is really interesting because when the Ottomans will, because they're going to do this through the rest of the 16th century. But when the Ottomans do this the first time with Kemal Rice, it's very clear they give him money, they give him a fleet, neither of which, I mean, he has 10 ships, 10 galleys and four other little tinier ships, and they give like 200 ships to command. A pirate's dream must be a fleet, a fleet. It's you can imagine Captain Jack Sparrow with like a fleet given to him suddenly,
Including a
including
flagship.
flagship. Yeah,
Uh, yeah, this no, well, actually, I think two flagships. But yeah, one in particular, and I don't know how exactly it's pronounced. It's Goke,
yeah.
but it's O with an umlaut. So But yeah, this amazing flagship
Yeah.
that they make for him in
Yeah.
1495.
Well, they've learned. I mean,
Here you
yeah,
go.
there you go. He's been normally dealing with galleys, and we're going to talk. We'll break in just a moment and talk a little bit about different ships that are available at this period of time. But he's used to galleys. They give him round ships as well as galleys, and tell him and then say, by the way, here's a lot more money, and you are going to be saved because now you're fighting with God, not against him. And then
Yeah,
I,
perfection.
I mean, it's essentially it is Christmas for I don't know what it would be in Islamic terms, but he's opening all sorts of presents now said sent by Bayezid, love Bayezid,
I mean, for a guy like this to get a flagship, which is going to it supposedly holds
yeah,
hundreds of
and
soldiers,
guns.
um,
Yeah, we're gonna get to
and the biggest guns that people could get out there at
yeah,
that point.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, big guns. Um, yeah, this is
It's
a
a
big
big deal.
deal. This is a big deal. This is smoke them if you got them. This is good stuff.
Well, on top of it all,
He's
the Ottomans immediately removed the greatest pirate force in the Eastern Mediterranean by hiring him to run their navy. Because
yeah,
nobody in the right mind, even a smaller band of pirates, are not going to, they're going to be, oh well, geez, we're not going to be wanting to do this. In fact, we know within a few years, for example, piracy almost immediately goes out of the Eastern Mediterranean. At least small pirate bands, they'll go more towards the Western Mediterranean and Northern Africa at this point. So it is effective in a couple of ways. Whoever thought this up, whoever was in Bayezid's group, and I'm not sure Bayezid would have thought of that. But whoever thought this up, give give him a big gold star for for in the middle of
yeah,
his forehead. Um,
absolute
it
master
was a
stroke. He went from
masterstroke.
kind of, in a sense, kind of like three
Yeah,
rival powers, with Venice, Ottoman, and the pirates, and knocked it down to two.
yeah.
Doubled your power and really screwed
Well,
the other
Christians,
side.
and then it becomes a holy war too, because you've got the pirate who's Muslim on your side. Now the big
Yeah,
forces who are pirating your ships, Venetians and the Hospitallers, it suddenly becomes a religious war on top of it. I mean, there's so
yeah,
many different things folded into this. Really, an interesting stroke of genius in the beginning of 1499, and also this does then suggest that the building time for the ships are done for the Ottomans, and we're now going to protect war. We'll come back to it, but the Venetians do the exact opposite. They never ever get people who are particularly smart in war to fight to lead their navies. It's always somebody who's an important family in Venice, and in this case it's the Loredan family, so Kemmel Rice with all of this experience, you can always see him. I vision that he's got one leg, a peg leg, and a parrot, of course, Um, he's wearing a turban
uh, false.
instead of a tricorn, but big long black beard, that sort of thing. And you get the gentleman on the other ship, with his pinky in the air sipping tea or something. I don't think
I I need to tell you all that is incorrect. Just in case any students are listening and are like, "Oh wait, really?"
no.
No, no.
Although being
Um,
the Venetian admiral, we would not have suffered much. I'm saying, it would not have been
yeah,
great.
no, he'd have been
It
all
would have
right.
been fun. Yeah,
But yeah,
there's a,
uh,
a, a writer right around this time named Chipico, who's a Venetian admiral of a smaller fleet, and he talks about this. He's retired before Zonchio, but he goes around and around the Eastern Mediterranean, and sometimes I have my students read his travels. He left a little diary on his travels, and they all think this would be a great life for a young man in this time of it, especially since he tends to land and then fight on land. He doesn't really fight on the sea.
yeah.
But anyway,
Which is, what, this might be a good place for us to pause for a minute and talk a little bit about what naval warfare is, because it isn't, when we mostly think about naval warfare through the Middle Ages, we should not be thinking of Pirates of the Caribbean. That kind of gunpowder at sea warfare is typically kind of what we think of, master and commander. Like that's so much later. That's all way
Yeah,
later. This is not how naval battles are basically fought in the Middle Ages.
that's right. That's right. And hasn't changed since the Roman period, except we do not have ramming. So back in the ancient period, ancient Greeks and Romans are using galleys. They're not necessarily rowing. They're rowing with citizens, at least in the Republic, and they're trying to outmaneuver a ship so they can come in and just and ram it, and then pull off and let that ship sink, or take down the
Right.
oars and fight, grapple together and land as land battle. And that really hasn't changed.
Yeah.
The Romans had catapults and ballistae on their vessels, and there are some instances we are sure that there are ballistae because they're in the illustrations and so forth. But when you get to a battle like Slouch, you get to a battle like Winchelsea, even Nisa in the 11th century, they're all mostly just let's bring the vessels together and we're going to fight on land, uh, on a
Yeah.
flat.
And this, yeah. It's not really on land, right? But it's a melee battle on ships. Yeah. So that's what and we say this a lot. We saw land battle at sea, and that's what we mean. Is yeah, Nisa. They just like, all right, let's strap all the boats together. All right, on the count of three, like go, and start hacking. Like this is again not this cannon based kind of thing that we see later on, except that now it's starting to change. It's starting to change at this point. So we should not be don't be imagining Pirates of the Caribbean kind of stuff. But this is where it starts to move in that direction to where we will eventually get there.
We start seeing cannons on ships in the end of the 14th century. But it's not until the 15th century that we actually get them used on ships. Seems that mostly in the 14th century, with some exceptions of the Genoese and the Pisans having very small caliber uh, guns that they use to a modicum. They're not hull breakers. They're really are just anti-personnel weapons, similar to archers, crossbowmen on the shore or on the
Yeah.
ship.
When actually do we get the first ship sunk by gunpowder
Well,
weaponry?
that's the kicker in this one. So hold on,
Oh,
because
oh,
this is what
oh,
I started. I
oh, do
when I
tell.
went when I was just a young buck, maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Uh, okay, maybe 40 years ago. I was doing a gun. I was doing uh, a paper on gunpowder weapons, and I came across a very interesting reference among the Burgundian guns. So Bob Douglas Smith and I wrote a book on the Burgundian guns. This was actually before. This was when I was doing a graduate paper, and then that would eventually become that book with the two of us writing it. And one of these interesting things was a 1434 reference to gunpowder weapons. And it said that there were these guns on Burgundian ships that were being used. And they're very interesting, is that there were small weapons, lots of culverin. And then there were these medium-sized weapons that the Burgundians called vouglaires. They're the same things that'll become
Mm,
fowlers in the 16th century.
right.
They're medium-sized weapons. They're all loaded muzzle by this time. They're all being loaded by muzzle, except it specifies that these vulgaire are loaded in the rear, both with powder chambers, which are these we talked a little bit before about interchangeable powders in the back of that would be filled with powder and then anchored into the back of the barrel of the gun. Almost all of those, though, had the gunshot loaded in the muzzle. These specified the 8 that are in this specifies that the shot and the gunpowder are loaded in the rear. So we have, and that means then that you don't have to pull things back. We don't have gun carriages, for example. You don't have to hang out over them and try to load them down the barrel and load them. And they're being
Right.
used specifically on Burgundian vessels. Now, those of you who have a map of Europe in your mind at the moment might say, Burgundy doesn't have a sea. No, they were used in the Mediterranean for
Odd.
protection, as protection for guns. And we know that they fired on fortifications often.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
what I started thinking. Okay, well, all right, when do we have the fortifications firing on guns? Well, that happens roughly around the same time. So Mehmed the Conqueror in 1453 builds Ramila Hisari as a gunpowder, as a artillery fortress to knock out ships that are going across the Bosphorus. He also holds Kemal Harari on the other side, and they crisscross the fire across the Bosphorus. And the second ship that goes down the Bosphorus gets sunk. So there's our 1453. What about guns? Now, Dick Unger said had put that the first one he had encountered was 1512, and a gun is shot by gunpowder weapons. But I knew, let's just think about that. Vasco da Gama, believe it or not, in 1502, aims guns on his Portuguese vessels below the sea line on the teak ships that are facing him in India. And, I'm not going to be fair at war and all this sort of stuff. Vasco da Gama, and he shoots and brings down several guns. 1502.
Okay. So 1502, 1502. We got it happening.
And
A ship sinking another ship with guns.
that's the earliest I came across until
Okay. Until
Zonchio.
Zonchio.
Now, before we get
Zonchio.
back into that, let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about the different ships and why and how they would have gunpowder on them.
Oh,
See, one of the big
yes.
things is that in the Mediterranean, the chief form of shipping, and this goes all the way back to Paul being every time Paul got on his ship, he went seems to have sunk somewhere. In the New Testament, to the point where I would have said Paul, found out Paul's on board, I would have mutinied. I'd said no, I'm not sailing on the ship. Those are all galleys. Everything is an oared ship, either a warship or even that's how they bring things, trade. So there's never a jump across the Mediterranean. It's around the Mediterranean. A galley has to stay close enough to get fresh water off the coast, and it has to stay close enough because it can't handle the big winds. It doesn't have huge sides. But we know, of course, the shipping in the north, that's different. That's a lot of round shipping. The Vikings are using oared ships. There's no question. There are oared ships, but they also start developing these round ships, which carry much more cargo, and and are faster because they have bigger sails as well. They're not relying upon oars, but at the same time can be stalled if the wind dies. Not a
Right.
lot of warfare. There's some piracy up in the Balkans, but I'm sorry, in the Baltic. Not a lot, not in comparison. More smuggling going back and forth and that sort of thing. But what's Columbus taking? 1492, what's Columbus taking across? He's taking large rounded ships because they can sustain the waves in the open sea. And Venice and other shipbuilding nations in the Mediterranean, even before this time, have started adapting and starting building some others. The Ottomans are probably the last in the game, but they'll start building round ships, and that's what these great ships are. Now, it's important, number of reasons. Cut to the quick. You can put one gun or a few small guns, but one big gun down the middle of a galley, and that's it.
Yeah.
The big round ships you can load with galleys, or
Yeah.
load with
And out the
guns
sides.
off the side. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a I think we said this before. It's so hard for us in the modern age when we have satellites to tell us how the weather is, when we have modern vessels, to not think about the danger of the sea. And what Kelly's talking about with needing to stay close to land, especially when you're the actual ships aren't built to withstand that kind of a pummeling that you can get on the open sea. Even on a good day, you can get a pummeling, but especially if a storm comes up, you're going to be absolutely smashed to splinters on these older forms of ships. And the new technology essentially that they're getting and how they're constructing these ships the round ships, as Kelly's saying. Don't think about a donut at sea.
Yeah.
Think about cutting the cross section of a ship. It has more of a rounded profile. Um, that that can withstand that kind of pressure, which allows more open sea travel, which allows more time at sea before you have to put in. And then, as Kelly just said, it has this military component as well. That this is not, if you put a cannon out the side of a galley, well, you probably rolled the galley, but you're not going to be able to withstand even firing the thing. But you do it on a round ship, and all right, we're cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are a couple of problems with the round ships. First is if you do have a storm comes up, the round ship could handle it better. All the galleys have to go ashore. They all have to get into shelter and get into a cove and everything else. They don't need a port. They could go anywhere and just hide out. They could go really near the beach.
Right.
They're low. They're low. The hulls are low, so they can go quite close.
Not a
Not
lot
a
of
lot of
draft.
traffic.
They don't have to go.
Anytime
Yeah.
a round ship can't follow them in that. And for a round ship to be utilized, it needs to have a port. And there aren't a lot that aren't guarded fairly well. So you could see you hear about the round ships that are going into roads, you hear about the round ships that are using Crete. They've got natural ports on them and so forth. There's not a lot there are some really interesting small places in the Peloponnese, but not big ports. Athens has one. Thessaloniki has one in the Aegean, but there's not a large number of ports. Constantinople, of course, very big port city, but that not only that having no ports like that means that a round ship with a very low hull is not going to be able to get into a cove, and it's not going to be able to get into anything. And at the same time, it has to have fairly calm sea if it's going to fire its guns, because you don't want it rolling and those guns you're aiming at some ship below you, some galley below you, and suddenly a ship raises and you're knocking off the fortress on the side. They still fight off the shore, but there is some negatives to it. That they're a big negative is they're much more expensive to build, much more expensive.
Yeah.
But we know, for example, in England, Henry V or Henry VI has two. Sorry, Henry VII has two. I knew it was one of those Henrys. Has two built in the 1490s, and one holds 250 guns, and the other one holds 300. So they're getting to the point where the next century is going to start seeing the big broadsides and hull openings and so forth. May have been hull openings around this period of time, but doesn't appear to be on the round ships in Zonchio. So the Ottoman fleet, which has a large number of galleys, Kemal Reis's own little fleet is galleys, and then two huge round ships filled with guns. And the Venetian Navy is almost entirely galleys.
And if you were to trace again, these galleys got to stay close to shore. And if you kind of trace almost like start your finger in Istanbul and another one in Venice and start bringing them along the coastlines as we go along, you're going to end up getting pretty close to where this battle actually happens between these fleets. It's just off of Pylos, Greece today. There's a beautiful bay there. There's an island Sphacteria. Go back to the 2nd century BC. There's like a really amazing ancient battle happens there. Cool stuff at Sphacteria. There's actually a lot of really neat sites around there. Old fortifications, because of that bay, it was a very useful harbor. And was, again, going back to the ancient age. And so this is a great place to visit. It's a good beach. I don't have any restaurant recommendations, but I'm sure there's some good ones there. If Sphacteria would like us to come out and do a live broadcast, we'll do it. Just saying.
Absolutely. How long can you tread water?
on the site, and we're glub 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 glub. So this is where we get these two fleets meeting, and in this battle called Zonchio, it's named for the cape just north of the island is Factoria. Lots of galleys, lots of vessels. When we add it all up, we're talking about a few hundred ships.
Mm-hmm. And I realized that I was just reading over the accounts, and the Venetians had round ships too, but they don't appear to have been armed like the Ottoman. There's a couple in each fleet. Mostly they're galleys. The figures they're given out. The Ottoman had 67 galleys, 20 galleots, which are just small galleys, and 200 other vessels. And the Venetians had 47 galleys, 70 galleots, and 100 smaller vessels. So Venetians are about 2 to 1. Our Ottomans are about 2 to 1 over the Venetians. The Venetians have got the skill. Um, the although the one of their ships is run by Loredan. The admiral in charge is Grimani, but he's 65. He's another old family person, and they're clearly not. Uh, they, I mean, I don't know why they think that they can just roll over. Probably because the Venetians usually would come into battle like this with their numbers, and the other fleets wouldn't flee.
Yeah,
They would just leave. And the Venetians let them go because they essentially won at that point in time.
yeah, and they'd certainly
Don't
never
nobody wants.
they'd never faced anything like these massive ships, you know, that like Kamal has, because nobody's seen anything like this before. Um, and but this is the way it rolls in on. And this is not a battle where we're going to say, you know, wow, they were outnumbered and they persevered and it was really amazing. That's not really what happens here.
No.
The Venetians were really outnumbered and they lost.
Yeah, they lost. Oh, but it should be said that the battle takes 4 days. So it's there's some differences with Navy. I mean, with the armies, you get a couple of armies seeing each other, and then they pretty well decide they're going to fight and fight. And they're not going to fight; they leave. They decide to fight and they fight. Here in this battle, they see each other on the 12th of August, get involved in a little bit of skirmishing, and then just stay around waiting for the other side to leave or waiting for the other side to do something stupid. So they're both there. The weather goes in and out, of course, and then they get back engaged on the 20th, back on the 22nd, and back on the 25th. And it's those 3 days that are the significant ones. Those are where the two fleets do decide that they're going to engage
Yeah.
each other, and it's very we I always try to think on of course on any battles we talk about. We both have done this when we think about the men. What would you have thought? So now we have to move ourselves from land, from being a peasant, being an archer, being a knight on a horse or something like that,
Yeah.
and we got to think about being a sailor or marine. Now, some on these vessels, but very few. We saw it at Crecy, for example. Only 25 out of 200 would be Marines on any of the galleys. So we figured in that. The rest of them are sailors. They're principally there to row the vessels to get in a position. Not a large number of slaves are being used at this time. That's going to be coming out after this. But you do have a large number of sailors, a large number of soldiers that are going to face each other, but they're not like they're facing on land.
Yeah.
What can't you use on a ship that you can use on land?
Well, one of the things you need to be really careful about using on ships is fire.
Of course, these got
These
cannons
got
now. You got to use fire.
yeah, but we do have to be very, very careful about fire.
Very
This is
careful
a
about fire.
very useful way of getting rid of a ship is to set it on
Yeah.
fire, which in fact will happen in this battle.
Will happen in this battle. The other thing is you cannot wear armor.
You don't want the thing rusting? What?
No, yeah,
And
that's really it.
and
No,
also if you
but
go overboard,
yeah,
you don't want to be wearing
yeah.
armor.
Add about 60, 50, 60 pounds to yourself if you go overboard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, first of all, dispel a couple myths. First of
Mm.
all, armor that would have been worn on ship is not 100 pounds. It's probably down below the around the 40, 50 pounds, 60 pounds. But a helmet's still going to be 5, 10 pounds. And mail shirt is going to be, nobody's going to wear plate on there because it just doesn't, they need to maneuver more. But mail shirt is going to be maybe lighter than on land. Because if you jump in, if you go down,
Yeah.
you got to get that armor off you.
You got to get it off.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is, yeah, it's not stainless steel stuff, so it's like the rusting of metal at sea is horrible.
Is horrible. It has to be
These guys
constantly.
in the holes, the heat, awful heat for these, the rowers and things like that. Yeah, they're not going to be well armored.
Yeah. Medieval people did swim. I love that one. Is well, wait a second, they didn't swim. And I go, of course they did, especially if you're living in the Mediterranean area. You start teaching swimming very early on. Everybody does that. So they could swim, but you add 50, 60 pounds to that in armor, it's going to be a little bit harder staying afloat.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you've been rowing all day and fighting or whatever. I mean, yeah, you're just going down. So
That's
yeah,
right.
you don't want to have that kind of stuff on. It's a,
And John Bossart, I mean, he's referring to a different battle in the north, but he says, I don't like writing about naval battles because people die. They don't run away. They can't. There's nowhere to
nowhere
run.
to run.
You gotta fight it out. And if you're on land, you may not want to. You may have reasons to not. But you always have the option of turning around and going the opposite direction
Yeah,
at a certain moment in time. Not see it, see it. I don't like this cause. Where are you going to go on a ship?
yeah. No, it becomes this kind of just brutal trap, right? We're all clustered together here. We're probably able to fight because the wind's down, so we're able to kind of stay in close quarters enough to fight. So it's not like you can just hoist sails and just like rock out of here. Like no, not probably not. And once things get nasty, they do get nasty very quick. I mean, in this battle, I mentioned it here just a couple minutes ago. Towards the end of it, two of the huge ships that the Venetians have go down when they attack one of these major flagships that the Ottomans have, and the Ottomans just burn it all. Like take down. Well, yeah, we're gonna lose our flagship, but we're taking down two of your biggest vessels you've got, 2-1, good odds. The commander gets off and just sets fire to the thing. Like how many people died in that between the flames on those three ships and then the people that got off, unless they got off there, with the commander, they probably just went into the drink, and
Hmm.
and that's just devastating. I
It is devastating.
just
And I
devastating.
think, one of the reasons, I mean, I've often pondered why they have these smaller ships around, obviously for supply. They're the ones that can go to the shore and get water and bring it out to the bigger ships and so forth and so on. I also think it is in these instances, and the Ottomans seem to have been a little bit better at it than the Venetians, is picking up
Yeah,
troops out of the water. Just saving what you can and getting them out because the Ottomans seem to have had nobody has a death wish. I mean, nobody's fire ships. We're not talking about this in an early modern context where they're burning ships and they send them afloat out
yeah,
across the,
yeah,
the way with sails. We're talking about actually getting among. I mean, this must really just have been everybody with each other, next to each other. Some grappled, probably most of them not. Um, the the great ships are looking down. They've got these two flagships and the two vessels and the two round ships in the Venetian army are in Venetian Navy are looking down on the galleys, so they're dropping things on them. And rocks are always carried, not just for ballast; they're carried and dropped down on things. And they also have these combustible ceramic and glass grenades. I'm not sure when the glass starts coming in. It's around this period of time, and they'll fill them up with combustibles and drop up with a fuse, light it.
Yep.
Those are pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, because I mean,
So
you
there's
you don't want fire on your ship. You want it on the other people's ship.
on the other
You
ship,
know,
yeah.
because
But so you don't want to get too close to the other ship
right,
that's burning because wood does catch fire.
wood does catch fire. This is one of these things. People talk about Greek fire, right? You spray all this stuff and it burns on water, and like, okay, but like, think through how often do you want to use that if you're in a ship on the water, like,
Yeah, the wind blows back at you. You got a problem.
be real
So,
careful, real careful. But the
I
but
mean,
the
still,
idea of it is the same. I mean, yeah, you set these
yeah,
things on fire. They're all made of wood. Set it on fire. Yeah, the water will put out the fire, but not before it's taking care of the ship.
yeah.
And meanwhile, people will of course be running from the flames, which probably means most of them are drowning. You win easily. But it is as Fossart was saying, a pretty total loss kind of warfare.
And this battle, and I urge everybody to kind of go look. Wikipedia has got a pretty good page on it, but it's developed in other books a little bit. One of the really interesting things is we actually have a contemporary painting, obviously by somebody who was there, showing the vessels all together and the big ships and the little ships, and very accurate. I mean, the guns are accurate, the ships are accurate. It must have been somebody who was an eyewitness who saw that. You can find that online. So you can get an idea a little bit about what's going on here. The melees, and this is why they fight over these periods of days. The first one on the 12th is just a little bit skirmishing, seeing what the size of the fleet is on the other.
Mm-hmm.
And then the big days, 22nd and 25th. By the 25th, there's still a chance the Venetians are going to win, but I think they're pretty well gone. And the Venetians are some ships are leaving and they're heading. The closest safe port is not Crete; it's in fact Rhodes at this period because it's more of a direct shot over the Rhodes. And so there's some of them are fleeing there, and Venetians are losing. They've got some few French allies, friendships with them. They're losing those by the end. The Ottomans stay fairly close together. I don't know whether this is because if you got a pirate as captain, you don't want to be cowardly.
Yeah, don't upset Blackbeard.
No, no, definitely not. Kemal Rice is probably not going to be so willing to put you on trial at an Ottoman court when you hit home.
You're just not going to make it home. So,
No,
yeah, this is a
and
it's a rough blow for Venice.
it is
A really rough
huge.
blow. And
It's really the first one they've lost, the first big naval battle they've lost in their entire history. I know people come and say, "Oh, well, what about these little ones that they lost, the Genoese and so forth and so on?" Yeah, but this was a huge loss. I mean, the numbers of dead in this, and then we don't know because we don't know what are on each ship. But I mean, if you figure that there are I think the deaths have got to be in the thousands on both sides.
yeah, I mean, even if
And
even if they just lost half the ships,
yeah, half the ships.
when you which we don't know, right? But even if it was just half the ships that were lost, when you think about how many men on a ship, how few probably made it out of the water if they went into the water. Yeah, it's a devastating loss.
Right, and especially, I mean, one of the things that's I think, very interesting. When we think about it, is what if the this last major conflagration, and that's exactly what it is, with the two Venetian ships and the big Ottoman ship in there too, because the Ottomans do lose one of their two. What that must have seemed to both sides, and especially
Yeah,
the Venetians, because they don't have anything. And it's now really we start to see a lot. The galleys are not gone; they'll go throughout. I mean, galleys will still be used in the 20th century, 19th century for sure in warfare. Um, but the day of the round ship's coming, especially when it has guns on it.
yeah.
And one of the guns is credited with launching a ball. These would have been a stone ball right through the top of a galley, and it goes straight down. And thus, the first ship knocked out by ship to
The fir-
ship.
First one we know of. I mean, if somebody out there has
First one.
got knows of an earlier one, holler, y'all.
Yeah,
We, we
yeah.
we'd love
Pretty
to know
interesting.
it.
It's not one of the round ships; those are burned, but it is one of the smaller vessels, and a very good story about that, and about the ball really just coming right through the roof and going straight down through. And yeah, that's a good way of saying they sunk my battleship, or in this case, they sunk my destroyer, my little puny galleon. So
Yeah, yeah,
a lot is determined by this. One of the big things determined is that this now launches the Ottomans a naval history.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, and from this time forward, navies are going to be an important part of the Ottoman military war machine. And before too long, well, by the time, so Bayezid will is followed by Selim, who focuses a lot on against the Mamluks in the Middle East and so forth. But Suleiman, he will have ships in the Mediterranean, have ships in the Red Sea, and have ships in the East Indian Ocean, because Suleiman has to protect once the families the sultans control the holy cities, Mecca and Medina. Suleiman says we got to protect the Hajj. That
yeah.
becomes one of the principal things. Now the Portuguese do win. It'll be fun. We'll take this few more episodes, quite a few more episodes down, and we'll have to talk about Suleiman the Indian Ocean, because that's the one I love, going into Portugal and go, hey, you guys beat Suleiman. It's like
That one,
you and the Persians, not anybody else.
yeah, that's actually a
Uh,
really, yeah. Not many people know about that. So
Not many people do know about that,
yeah,
and and Suleiman does pull back, but he takes on himself. Salem had taken on himself. It's a little early for Bayezid, but one of the things that also comes out of this is the Venetians. Now they're going to fight for another 4 years. They still don't think they're done. It won't be till 1503 that this war is over. But they start signing, so they're back to the treaty given. One of the things they do hold on to by this, eventually, they do keep in control. They lose cost, but they keep Crete and they keep Cyprus. In fact, they keep Crete into the 17th century. Cyprus will fall in 1570, 71. But they keep those islands. They do so by, again, treaties and tribute to Ottomans. And one of the treaty things is they can't pirate a Muslim ship,
yeah,
and especially a ship going on the Hajj. And in fact, the ships on the Hajj, they can't, if somebody else, some other Christian nation, goes up against them, then the Venetians have got to go tell that Christian nation they can't go against the Hajj.
yeah,
And then the Venetians also have to pay about 2,000 ducats a month or something along those lines, 10,000 a year, something about that. If that varies, but they pay that just to stay in control
yeah.
of their islands, their remaining islands, and
So
hoping that nobody wants to go up against them.
so yeah, I mean, it's a little known battle, but it has pretty significant ramifications. It is actually more important than you would think when you all started this episode and were like, Zonchio, what the hell? Hopefully showing you there's some interesting stuff here as well. What do you wish that we knew that we don't know about this battle, man?
Well, I wish we had more sources. We don't have a lot of sources. I will say this: the painting does give us an idea of what we're reading, mostly Venetian sources that we're reading, and some that are eyewitnesses, some that are told by eyewitnesses. Uh, we wish that we had some Ottoman sources that told us what was happening on that
Yeah,
side. The one thing that can be said is, so Grimani, when he gets back to Venice, he's arrested and put on trial for cowardice, and for dereliction of duty. So we do have some of that testimony that comes through. Of course, he's trying to defend himself always, so he may paint the Ottomans in a better picture than they are. But boy, and then of course I just like one of those big ships. There is an Ottoman galley around. In the Naval Museum in Istanbul is a galley from the 17th century, so you can at least see how one of these is made. But I'd love to have had to know what type of round ship they've got. And so far, we don't have any excavations early this year, with these type of ships.
Yeah, the best we've got are these artistic depictions, and those are not necessarily wrong, but it'd be a lot better to have the physical artifact, right? 100%. This is, and we've mentioned this, I think, before, but it's going to keep coming up. There are so many of these engagements where we really only have one side, and we so desperately wish we had both. And especially in a case like this, where our we have religious differences, political differences, social difference, like a whole bunch of differences separating these sides. And so the voices that we have are coming with a lot of baggage, and you wish you had the other side's going to have their baggage too. Yeah. But between two sides with baggage, we're probably going to get a better idea of what's going on than just one side with baggage. So yeah, we definitely wish we had more sources, original primary sources for this battle, as with so many of them.
Yeah, but this also gives you an idea once more. Winners don't always write the history.
Yeah,
because it is just like with the fall of Rome. Here we have the losers are writing the history, and they don't fare themselves very well in the histories of their losses. It is kind of interesting to note that. We'll see it again in Rhodes in 1522, where we're going to do sometime this year for the 500th anniversary of the battle.
yep,
And there too, the majority of sources are coming out of the hospital ranks, and there isn't a truth that comes out of them because they can't really say, well, didn't happen, they lost. I mean, there's nobody in Venice. By the time Grimani gets back, there's no one in Venice who thinks that somehow they pulled it out.
yeah. No,
So he can't get up there and say, "What are you talking about?" I think
we won.
we have more interesting politics where they could actually say, "No, we didn't do that." You go, "But you did do that." No, we didn't do that. Here, Grimani can't say, "No, we didn't do that." He has to face up to the fact that they got defeated, and they got defeated by what they saw up to this point as a significantly inferior naval force.
Yeah, boy, were they
That
proved wrong.
and it will continue to be proved wrong.
Yep.
But Venetians will hold on to Crete and Cyprus for a bit. But it is the Ottomans' second wave kind of military force coming in. Definitely.
Well, they're flashing the lights at us, man.
Yeah, they don't. They evidently that little fire that got set on the bar that we were trying to use
trying to demonstrate. So this is how fire takes down wood. Sorry, Bob.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So we hope people learned some stuff. Hope you enjoyed the episode. As I said, our next episode Q&A. I don't have in front of me what's coming at us.
I got one. I've got one that's coming.
You already know of one.
Yeah, I
do. Somebody else usually gathers these things, and then they kind of like, here you go, and then we look at them, we're like, oh wow, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's
what we're doing today.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll make them up otherwise.
Yeah, you don't want us making up questions. So yeah, send in your questions. We will look forward to answering them on our next episode. Because we like talking to you all. So yeah, please do join us for that next episode. As ever, a reminder, this podcast is sponsored by medievalist.net. So the best way to support us, other than buying our individual books, of course, is to join their Patreon at patreon.com/medievalists. That's also that best place to drop us a line if you have any questions for our Q&As. So thanks for listening. Cheers, everybody.
Bye now.